All right. Morning, everybody. Just while we're waiting, literally as it says, feel free to have a little look at a spot the difference, only because I personally find it really awkward those times where you just kind of awkwardly stare at the screen for about a minute before you start. So if you can make it out, I know it'll be slightly smaller on your screen, but feel free to have a look while we wait for any late. All right. Okay. Joe Skill. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this now. I'm gonna say Joe S. There's two Joes on the call, so you're gonna think I'm being really formal. Joe Skill, are we good to start?
Yes, I think everybody's here, Dan. Yeah, all good to go.
Fantastic. Right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I will run through the answers of this in a moment because I'm sure you're absolutely keen to see them. I may not have got them all right because I was quite tired when I was trying to do this. What this is all about, and thank you for coming, is going to be all about just trying to give you some more and some ideas. It came from the feedback that came from our last workshops. If we can just make sure we stay on mute just for the main kind of input part of this, and I'll go through the agenda in a moment, but then the second part of it, we really need you to kind of be off mute and involved as much as you can. So, did you find them all? These are the ones I found. I reckon there was about 4, but if you found more than 4, I really apologise, but I think that was the 4 of them. So there was the chimney, there was the plant, there was the extra light, and then I think there was the other extra light. So there you go. Right, I'll actually go on to the more formal part of this. So thank you for joining us. As I said, it's a workshop, and the workshop you only get out of the workshop what you put into the workshop. So there'll be the kind of input part of it in which we hope it's helpful, but then hopefully the conversations that follow in the second part will be the bit that actually moves your project forward. Housekeeping is the bit that I'm kind of bimbling through now. What I'm going to do then, I've kind of made a list as to who's in the meeting that I would like to introduce themselves. If you can kind of just say, I personally find these things really awkward, so I'm sorry for making you do this, but it is really helpful just to kind of say who you are, where you're from, and kind of where you're up to. And if you can just kind of summarize that all up in about 40 seconds, that'd be fantastic, because it worked really well for my timings, and my OCD won't really let you go past 40 seconds. I don't want to cut in. So I'm going to go through my list. If I miss anybody, I'm going to ask Joe Skeel to shout at me and say, you've done this wrong, you've missed somebody. So I'll kind of just pick on you in order, so enjoy this. Kerry.
Hi, I knew you were going to pick me first. How did I know? Good morning. So my name's Kerry Lane. I'm work for Midas Construction. I'm the Employment and Skills Coordinator there. So we are looking at virtual work experience. We haven't started it yet, but we're in the process of collating all the information and see what we're going to put into it and everything. We are working with Building Greater Exeter as well, so we're going to collaborate with a few companies together. So that's about where we are at the moment.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Kerry. Jane.
Jane, me.
Oh yes, sorry, yes, Jane. Oh, yeah, that was really awkward.
Sorry, that was really awkward for a minute because I couldn't find the unmute button. Sorry, people. So I'm Jane Ford. I work for MVB, so we're not actually a construction company. But we are similarly very, very hands-on. We're in energy from waste, so waste management and energy generation. So sort of engineering is the link. We also do build new facilities, so there is a slight construction link. So I thought this would be a really good session for me to just get some ideas and share with you as well.
Brilliant.
So I've been working with Hayley already. So we've made a start, let's just say.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane, and thanks for joining us. Hopefully you get a lot out of it. Leanne.
Hiya, I'm Leanne Beck, I work for Midas as an employment and skills plan coordinator. Like Kerry said, we haven't actually done any of this yet, but we are looking to obviously start it soon, but just need a bit more information on everything really. So yeah, that's about it.
Ideal, thank you. Dawn?
Morning everyone, I'm Dawn Chamberlain from Building Greater Exeter, and we, together with our partners, a number of construction companies, education providers and local authorities, we want to ensure there's a really strong construction offering with a number of our partners and through ourselves in those critical weeks in June and July.
Brilliant, thank you, Dawn. Kim? Ooh. Ooh.
Maybe move on and come back to Kim, Dan, if that's all right.
Yeah, no worries. Where am I at now? Amanda?
Hi, Amanda Willington. I'm a schools advisor from the Job Centre in Exeter, just listening in and gaining some information for my schools, really.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, morning everyone. Michelle Cole, Group Community Engagement Manager with Midas. So Kerry and Leanne are my colleagues. We're keen to get a really good virtual work experience offer up and running. We historically have done loads of on-site placements, which we're obviously not able to do at the moment. I'm very keen to support young people and encourage young people into construction and to bust some of those myths really. So see virtual work experience as an opportunity for us to do that.
Brilliant, thank you. Elaine?
Hiya, I work for NG. I work in the construction arm of NG in the new build side. We've actually got our first virtual work experience sessions next week with the Job Centre with an information session at 10 o'clock today. So maybe I should be on next week and letting you know how it all goes rather than today. But yeah, so we're starting next week with our sessions and also some school sessions then after that later on in February. So yeah, we're taking the plunge.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely let us know how that goes. Herbert? Ooh. Was that awkward bit? You kind of like count down 3, 2, 1 while someone finds the mute button, don't you? Oh, we are.
Good morning, all. This is Herbert from Prevista. I'm really on this call to find out more about what the construction offering is about, and hopefully potentially find a partner for virtual placements or even physical placements if rules change with COVID. So I'm from a company called Prevista. We're a training provider.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, brilliant. And Darnell.
Morning, guys. Herbert and I are colleagues. We both work for Prevista Training. Yeah, just like he mentioned, a sort of national training provider. The two of us actually work within the traineeship arm of the business, which really supports young people between 16 and 24. Funny enough, we've recently been started doing some work with some employers that's offering a virtual placement, but none within this sector. So yeah, hence why we're here.
Fantastic, thank you. And then I've actually asked Andy to be here, so if you can introduce yourself, Andy.
Morning all, yeah, my name's Andy Houghton. I'm a product developer within the careers team at CITB. And as you'd expect, we look nationally and regionally, even locally, at any careers activity, best practice in particular. The aim really is to support that and galvanise it if necessary, instigate it where we can, but certainly to support whatever's happening out there, reflected on Go Construct if we can, and hopefully everyone here is aware of Go Construct. Work experience clearly in terms of the pipeline through to proper employability, skills gaps. There's a whole load of relevance, and I think it's absolutely central to where we need to be. So I don't know if you were intending, Ben, to circulate contact lists, but I'm more than happy for mine to be distributed if people need to get in touch with me and either to ask or suggest things.
Brilliant, thanks, Andy. And you actually just kind of took the next line out of my mouth. I was going to say, it's throughout the session, if you wanted to put if everyone wanted to put their contact details in the chat, we can then save the chat, and then we kind of got that contact list kind of organically created. Right, I'm just going to, because I'm conscious of, hopefully, of time, because we should have.
Sorry, Dan, just really quickly. I think we've got Karen Woodward on the line as well from Engineering UK. I don't know whether Karen said hello.
Oh, we do.
Sorry.
I apologise profusely. See, this is why it's incredibly important that Joe Skeel was in the meeting. Karen, yes.
Hi everyone, yeah, from Engineering UK, covering the Southwest region, and listening and learning this morning to see how we can help promote what you're doing. If there's any top tips, we can also share with the employees we work with.
Lovely, thank you, and I apologise for missing you in my small screen of pictures.
And we've also got Alison Bond from the Careers and Enterprise Company with us today as well. So Alison, whether you want to say a very quick hello.
Yeah, morning everyone. Yeah, thank you. I'm Alison Bond. I'm Senior Employer Engagement Manager with the Careers and Enterprise Company. I've joined to see what what the kind of things are that are on your mind in terms of the construction industry and virtual work experience. I'm leading on a project for CEC to put together a comprehensive guide for employers on virtual work experience, which we're hoping to publish mid-March. So I thought it'd be really useful to hear some of your thoughts today. I'm juggling work and looking after my mum, so I'm about to jump in the car. So if I don't contribute and I'm just listening, please forgive me for that. But you know, I might be a bit noisy in the background if I'm in the car. So I won't disrupt, but I will be here to listen. It's lovely to see you all.
Lovely.
Thank you, Alison.
And sorry, Dan, I will let you speak in a minute. Danielle has just joined us as well. And obviously we've got our speakers for schools colleagues, but you'll hear from them later. But I don't know whether Danielle, who's just joined us, wants to say a quick hello.
Yeah. Danielle, do you want to just kind of say hello and who you are, and then we'll come, as you'll see through the agenda, we'll come to your part in a moment. Ooh. Or not. Okay, right. We'll move on. There's a stuttered start. Danielle, will come to you in about 5 minutes time, so you can just hold tight for 5 minutes. You can kind of do your introduction at that point. Right, what I'm just going to share with you now, I was in conversations with Dave O'Connor, who's the head of construction at Exeter College. What I personally hate in meetings is when somebody just reads out an email to you. So I will not do that, but I'm just going to talk around these points because it was quite a lengthy email and I've just picked out the key points of it. What Dave wanted to share with me, because he was aware of this event, he wanted to share the kinds of things he's struggling to get for his students. Obviously, he's got level 2, 3, and even level 4, I believe, students that kind of come to the Exeter College construction site. And he wanted to share some of the ideas of things that he's struggling to get that would be his wish list. So the demonstration of live skills, it forms part of a meeting that I have with the CITB this week as well. It's the idea of trying to find a way of kind of that over-the-shoulder camera style. It's not going to be like your perfect video, but it's your real video where they might do something wrong, and then they could talk about, oh, actually, I didn't lay that brick perfectly square. The reason I did, I took it off and then I took the cement away and I started again. It's just that organic stuff that makes the roles very real. The professional online forums is something that isn't unique to the current pandemic, but it's something that he struggles with his students. So if there's any professional forums, I know there's like RICS and things like that. If there's any way of sharing anything that comes from those, that's a fantastic way of engaging with schools and colleges. Virtual tours, but he said that obviously companies are going to be doing this anyway, but he said, as strange as it sounds, don't miss the boring stuff, as he called it. The kind of the recycling points, your access points, all of that stuff that you typically do face to face, make sure it's a part of the virtual, because that's what makes a workplace real. virtual discussions is kind of fairly obvious. Sharing of resources. Resources, I know as a business, resources is quite a school and college word, but I'm not sure if I put it further down. No, so it's the idea of like drawings and anything that is visually on a screen. It's quite easy to share, the sharing of that. Which, oh yeah, it does go into the next one. Trade area videos that are pre-recorded, ones that can be deployed at any time. Again, that's quite a generic one that's being done quite a lot at the moment, so that's kind of covered. And then the idea of apprentices, but then again, the real element of apprentices, so how do you actually get to work? Because you may be 16, 17. How does transport work? What do you have to get lots of buses? Is that money covered? All of those things, all of those kind of hidden side of being an apprentice, rather than just I get to work and I put the hard hat on and I learn this trade. It's all the hidden side of it as well. So I just wanted to share that with you, just as that was something that Dave thought would be helpful for us to know. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Danielle, if she's there and she's happy to. And Danielle, if you can just give us a 5-10 minute, however long works for you, doesn't matter if it's short, long, whatever, where you're at with Wilmot Dixon, as I'm sure some of us have seen that your adverts are out at the moment, so you must have some kind of offer ready to go. So I'll hand over to you.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
You can. Oh, brilliant. That's right. I've just moved house, so I'm really struggling with all my technology not working at the minute. So just, you might have to bear with me. I might be in and out. That's why I've turned my video off, because if I turn my video on, I disappear. So hi guys, my name's Danielle. I'm the Community Liaison Manager at Wilmot Dixon. And basically at the minute we have got a virtual work experience offering going out in the half term, so the 15th to the 19th of February. We're in the process of just finishing off putting it together, so putting an agenda together. We did run an insight day on the 14th of December just to go through how we can do things, what kind of engagement we could get, run the technology, because we did have quite a few issues with technology, getting students to be able to log in, getting their microphones and cameras on, because a lot of them were quite shy about keeping their mics and their cameras on. And also it just so happened to be the one day that the whole of Google went down. So why not test it on a day like that? So effectively that went really well, other than Google going down. We had quite a lot of positive feedback. We did it with Exeter College and Bridgewater and Taunton College from the Southwest. And then we also did it with SGS, which is South Gloucester College, and Coleg Gwent in Wales. I think it's in Newport. So we kind of did a bit of an array of colleges. That went on, that was kind of a half day insight. And in that, it was a really quick way of us trying to put together an agenda. So effectively we went in, we did like a bit of an icebreaker, went into the breakout rooms and asked the students to do a really quick task. And basically that task was to put a range of salaries in order of who they thought got paid the most. And it was doctor, nurse, project manager, QS, taxi driver, those kind of things, and just put them in order of who they thought got paid the most and who they thought got paid the least. And that was just an icebreaker to kind of get them working in groups together. From that, we moved on and we had our recruitment manager come in and talk about the recruitment process with us, what kind of opportunities we would have, and how that process works. And then that was followed by a project manager, so essentially a kind of a contracts manager level. And he came in and spoke about, because he started as a trainee, so he came in and spoke about his kind of life through Wilmot Dixon from a trainee right up to a project manager. He also spoke about skills and qualifications that he needed, and he has, I don't know whether anyone's heard of it, something called a Matterport, which is basically like a 3D modelling system. And he basically walked the students around Cardiff Royal Infirmary, which is his job. And they walked around all 3 floors as if they were there effectively, a bit like a virtual reality type thing. And he could show them, what kind of things they'd been renovating, what kind of bits were new build. And he could give them a bit of an idea about what the existing building looked like and the kind of things they were up against when it came to renovating it. So after that, he kind of moved on and spoke about him, like, what kind of things he did on the job. and then ask the students again to get involved and ask any questions. So we asked the students if they could kind of just prepare one question that they wanted to ask him about anything, basically to do with the job, himself, Wilmot Dixon. So they all asked him one question. Some of them are really obviously thought about it, and some of them are just kind of off the cuff winged a question, which is absolutely fine. We didn't ask them to pre-plan it. It was, you know, just kind of think of something now. And then after that, he did an activity, which was basically a programming activity. And he, on the site in Cardiff, they had like a small bungalow, and it must have been like a relative's kind of bungalow to stay in if anybody was in the hospital. And as part of the project, they did that as a legacy build, which is something we do with all our big jobs. We do a legacy project. So as their task, the program was due to go over because of one or more factors. And they had to look at the program and they had to think about what they could do to make sure that we didn't go over the program. So it could have been getting more plumbers on site because the plumbing was, you know, we're going to make the thing was going to make it run over, or to work weekends. So they basically had to work in groups. They were given an abundance of information and the program, and they were basically asked. It wasn't difficult. It was quite an easy. I mean, I could do it, so it's obviously quite easy. But they put it together just again to kind of test their team working abilities, and again to test the platform to make sure we could actually get that many people in the breakout room working together. And then basically come back with their answers, and then he would go through the answers and then tell them what he would have done, and then obviously listen to what they suggested. And then we finished off with one of our trainees coming in and just talking about our trainee scheme. So it went on for, it was half a day, so it might have sounded a bit longer than it was, but it went really well, and I think the students really enjoyed it. And I think that the prospect of a day work experience has actually been grasped really well. A lot of the colleges that we worked with have asked if we'll do something similar again just for that college. So as opposed to having lots of people, we would give them say 30 spaces for that one college. So that's something we're looking at as well. But our actual week-long work experience is, again, like I said, half term. It's the same kind of concept, but at a longer scale. So our main project running throughout the week is designing a school. So they'll hear from industry professionals on like costing, so estimating, design, sustainability, marketing. So at the end of it, they have to do a presentation to market their what they've done and sell it to us to see that it's a good idea, that we should run with it. So they'll hear from a marketing professional and how to put together a presentation, and how to kind of sell your product. So, and that's the theme that runs through the week. So throughout the week, they'll hear from various professionals, like I said, such as QSs, design managers, site managers, sustainability, and they'll be able to kind of use that knowledge and use that information to put towards their main project. And on the Thursday and the Friday will be the final 2 days where they go off into their breakout rooms together. They put together their project. What we're hoping is that somebody will kind of take the lead and be a project manager. We're not going to assign anything. We're literally just going to assign their group and hope that they pick a project manager, someone who kind of stands out and wants to take the lead. And then they'll assign themselves roles within it. So they'll assign one person as looking at the costs, one person as looking at the environment sustainability side of it, another person looking at programming and things like that. So it's not a difficult task. It's not like you need to have 3 or 4 years experience in construction. It's a good tool for them to have. It's probably not something that I could do because I haven't been learning what they've been learning, which is why we're targeting anyone that's doing T-levels, construction built environment courses, even trade students, to be fair. They might have a bit of a disadvantage because obviously it's a lot more management orientated. But again, it is open to anybody who is interested in construction work experience. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how we're doing it at the minute. Again, it's the first time we've done it. It's a kind of trial and error and see how it works for the first day. And there's lots of, like I said, people popping in to talk, and we need to make sure that they can get in and they can kind of get access to it, especially because we're going to try and do it as much of it live as we can rather than pre-recorded. So they can ask questions, because we thought that it'd be nice for them to be able to access them and actually ask them questions rather than just showing them a pre-recorded video and then telling them to go on their way and do that section. we thought, you know, if they've got questions, we're not in a position to answer, but those industry professionals will be. So yeah, that's kind of the way it's going at the minute. We're quite low on applicants, and we think the reason that is because it's in half term, and now everybody's working virtually. They want a break during half term, as opposed to, you know, maybe having the, you know, the time to do something virtually in half term. So that's the kind of feedback we've had from some of the colleges. Yeah, is that, you know, next time would we consider doing it in term time? And then, you know, the colleges or the schools can actually put that as part of the curriculum for a week, rather than saying, you know, you need to do all this virtual work, and actually now here's another week when you could be, you know, chilling out for a week. You know, here's another virtual week of work. So I think after we've done this one, we might actually look at doing one in term time and seeing the difference in the uptake. So that's where we are. Sorry for rambling. But yeah, at the minute, like I said, a lot of it's still kind of work in progress agenda wise, but we've got a basic kind of route that we're going down. It's just making sure we get the right people to talk at the right time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Danielle, for sharing that. And I'm aware that you have quite a big meeting at 10, don't you? So you're kind of juggling in between. So just while Danielle's here, does anyone have any questions? And given the low numbers, if you just wanted to come off mute and directly ask any questions.
I have a really quick one. Thank you so much, Danielle. It was really, really helpful. How many placements are you actually offering?
So we're offering 30 across the 3 regions, so effectively across the Southwest and Wales. Initially, we marketed it directly to Exeter, Bridgewater, SGS and Coleg Went, because that's who we worked with on the Insight Day. So we thought, well, we'll go to them first because they helped us out with that. But because the uptake's been relatively low from those 4 colleges at the minute, we've actually just decided to kind of spread it out and say it's open to anybody. So it's not, we're not just focusing on those areas, we're focusing on anywhere in the Southwest, from like Cornwall up to, you know, Gloucester, and then into Wales as well. Because, you know, I think as well, as long as people are happy to work with people they don't necessarily know, and obviously the age range, we initially we said, I think we put, I don't know why, but we put years 10 to 13, which I think put people off, because obviously 13 is sixth form, not technically college. So I think we didn't get as many from that, so we've changed it now, and it's literally open from 16 to 24. So yeah, we thought it would be quite nice to have maybe some older people that want to go into construction but haven't ventured in yet, to give them a bit of an insight as well. And I think they wouldn't be any worse off than, you know, someone 16, 17 who's at school who hasn't necessarily done construction as well. So and then having that age range is similar as it would be on site. You're going to have a varied you know, age range on site. You're not just going to have a, you know, 4-year gap between people. You're going to have to work with people a lot older than you, and again younger than you. So it opens up that communication line as well.
Brilliant, that's really helpful, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Jo. Any other questions while we have Danielle? And feel free to use the chat if it's easier, or if you think of anything at some point. Danielle, if there is anything that comes through when you have to leave us, are you happy for me to email it through, and we'll do it via email? That'd be great. Brilliant. Thank you, Danielle.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm now going to hand over to our speakers for schools, representatives, if you like. So we've got Hayley Beckles, who is our Southwest lead, but I'm sure she'll introduce herself, so I won't do that for her. And we've also got Jo Barker. So I'll hand over to Hayley and Jo.
Hi everybody, and just sorry, we just put the kettle on in the background, so if you can hear that, that's what's happening. But at least I'm getting one made for me, so that's great. But I'm Hayley Beckles, I'm head of the Southwest, and I joined Speakers to Schools, I think officially about 7 weeks ago. But I've been really lucky to be working with Dan, Jo, and Anne. It's great to see so many faces that I've been speaking to, like Jane, Dawn, and I know Michelle came onto the Swindon call this week too. So rather than going over kind of more what Speakers to Schools do, I'll just, for those who don't know, we can offer a portal and a platform for you to offer 1-day, 3-day or 5-day virtual work experiences. And when we can go back to those face-to-face activities, we can also use the portal as a way of showing your opportunities. So it still works, and that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years. But I wanted to bring my colleague in, Jo, today, because she works with a lot of construction companies, and I thought it'd be good to kind of hear from her firsthand about the companies she's working with and some of the engagement that we're doing, and also about some of the campaigns that are coming up, and then we can leave more time for questions and answers afterwards. So I'll pass over to Jo to give you a bit more insight.
Great. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I've had to turn my camera off. I think I'm having some Wi-Fi issues, so I thought it was better you hear my voice than see my face. I'm one of Speakers of Schools strategic employer consultants, and essentially what that means is I work with our kind of larger national accounts around kind of really planning their offer across the UK. So as Hayley mentioned, obviously I'm not going to go into kind of a vast amount of detail on kind of what we do, because I know you've heard that before, but I'll just cover the fact that you probably know that we're over the UK now, so we have heads of regions in every area, hence why we can kind of pick that up and deliver in those areas. The other, I guess, key part of probably my role is really kind of looking to, I think Danielle mentioned, kind of ensure that you, if you're kind of on one of our kind of higher level services, that we get students recruited that you're looking to reach, really, so that we get those numbers of students, but also that we get them from kind of specific geographies or perhaps demographics that you're looking at. And just to kind of, again, echo what Hayley said, our portal works a little bit like a jobs board, I guess, in kind of promoting your opportunities. And we run our actual sessions, so any of the sessions that we run through Google Classroom. And that's in order to kind of safeguard yourselves and our young people, and that's because it's the most effective way of kind of doing that. And there's lots of different, I guess, measures that are put in place to kind of help that happen. Currently, we're working with lots of kind of construction employers, Wilmot Dixon being one of them, as Danielle mentioned, and I was actually part of the kind of planning of that Insight Day that happened in December when Google Classroom crashed, which was a little bit of a nightmare, but we still kind of muddled through and kind of got there in the end and had some great outputs for both the employer and students. But we also work with the likes of kind of Skanska, Costain, Balfour, Waits, Mace, just to name but a few of kind of those key players. I guess the reasons why businesses engage with us generally is around kind of early talent awareness, so kind of showcasing the types of careers that you offer in the construction industry, traditional and non-traditional, diversifying talent. So obviously if you're looking to kind of diversify the types of recruits that you want to kind of get on board. So at the moment I'm working with some construction industry employers to offer Insight Days on International Women's Day in March, for example. So we kind of link that into campaigns that are running internationally, as well as obviously that we're running at Speakers for Schools, and to kind of satisfy your social value output. So if there's anything around Section 106, CSR, any of those elements that you kind of want to look at. And we kind of do a range of different programs with those employers. So we either do spotlight sessions, which are kind of very short, snappy, hour or so snippets where we get to kind of work with young people, or you can do, as mentioned by Danielle, an insight session that could be a half a day or a full day, or as Hayley mentioned, virtual work experiences, which could be 1 to 5 days in duration. And obviously just around our kind of levels of service, we offer the platform free for everyone and all of our employers and for our schools and colleges. But as I mentioned, we also have kind of costed services that have a little bit more support. So if that is something you're looking at engaging with, Hayley or I can kind of take you through those options after the call as to what that includes and kind of how you engage with that. And I guess what works really well in sessions and what we found works really well is our USP is all around live content. So anything that's live and interactive. Danielle mentioned some fantastic suggestions on what they did. So anything that's real life, real projects that you can share with young people, and just trying to make the content as kind of real to life as generally that you would happen in a kind of normal day in the office, for want of a better word, or on the site. Just to kind of give students a real insight into kind of what happens and why, really. Case studies work really well, and kind of bringing apprentices in to share their stories, as Danielle mentioned. Virtual tours of sites, obviously at the moment where we're doing kind of everything virtually, Q&As and quizzes, skills sessions. So perhaps we could send students perhaps materials, or they could use household materials to kind of make or construct something, or kind of breaking out into groups and taking on specific roles as part of a project as well. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of what we do is around kind of linking to campaigns as well, to kind of promote agendas around that. So as I mentioned around International Women's Day, that's kind of obviously an international campaign, but we also run our own internal campaigns. So Speakers for Schools is running a Green Skills Week from the 6th to the 9th of April. And we're looking to kind of identify companies in construction, but in other sectors, where they could do perhaps an insight session or a virtual work experience around perhaps sustainability, zero carbon, or your greener agenda. So we're definitely looking for companies to kind of reach out to kind of focus on that. And it will give, I guess, a kind of real focus for your virtual work experience offering. So anyone that's kind of interested in doing that, contact myself and Hayley around that. But that's it for me. I don't know if anyone has any questions, as Hayley mentioned, that you'd like to ask.
Thanks so much, Jo. Yeah, nobody's coming off mute at the minute, so I'm assuming that means there's no questions, but
or they can't come off mute.
Yeah. Feel free, like Dan said earlier, feel free to use the chat, you know, if you want to just pop anything in there. I know there's been a little bit of conversation going in there, and Dan's confirmed that we'll try and we'll speak to Danielle about sharing, you know, their kind of their project plan for the week, so you can have a look at that in a little bit more detail. You know, one of the reasons that we wanted to bring you all together as a sector is because, you know, that sectoral approach for VWEX for you guys, it is probably, you know, a really sensible way forward. So the more we can kind of share and collaborate, I think probably the better. So thanks, Jo. I don't think there's any questions, but really now this next session is about just opening it up and you know, making sure that everything that you guys need, you've got. So I know, and I've picked on Jane a few times before, but I know Jane was brand new to this right at the beginning, and is now talking to Speakers for Schools about the Green Skills Week, and you've got a little bit of a plan there, Jane, don't you? And then you're kind of taking that forward. So I don't know whether you've got anything to share around how you've kind of come to the conclusion to proceed with it, or.
Yeah, I can do if you like. So normally pre-COVID, we would probably host around 6 to 8 work experience students across the summer and sometimes the Easter terms. And what we offer is very, very practical in terms of hands-on experience. So they get to operate the weighbridge where the waste trucks are coming in. They get to work in the tipping hall. They get to go and work with the engineers out on plant as well. And I think in the beginning, I was limited by my own imagination, in fact, because we just can't offer that virtually. So I had a chat with Hayley. It was really, really helpful. It was kind of just to take me out of that sort of mental block that I was in. And now, yes, ideas are starting to come, and it's really helpful to hear how other people have organised their insight days. I think that's what we're going to go for first with the Green Skills Week. Because fundamentally what we do as a business is divert waste from landfill. So it fits quite nicely with that sustainability agenda. And we can include sort of other aspects of the waste hierarchy, and, you know, just something that Jo was just speaking about now, in fact, you know, challenging students to use things that are potentially waste products at home, but actually build something out of those and have something to show for it and then share it. And yeah, the idea of just, you know, things that to me didn't occur that they would be learning experiences in terms of just putting a presentation together and presenting your ideas and thoughts and findings to somebody else. You know, it's something I do in my job every day, but actually a 16-year-old in school probably doesn't. And yeah, so ideas are starting to flow, and we'll be having more catch-ups with Hayley. Look out soon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Jane. I think you said to me before, you know, one of the things that got you thinking differently was, you know, don't think about it like a normal work experience, kind of take a step back, just reevaluate the whole thing and think of it as a completely different project, because you can't replicate, you know, what you do face to face. It's something very different. So yeah, I know that you'd said that before.
Yeah, I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, actually. Don't limit yourselves to trying to replicate something that isn't replicable.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Has anybody else got any questions or anything that you were hoping would be covered in this session and kind of we haven't addressed, or you know, what other support do you feel you need?
Hi, I'll break the silence as usual.
Thanks, Michelle.
No worries. So I owe Hayley an email because we have just signed up to Speakers School, and obviously I'm sure they'll be able to assist us. But I guess I can see from it's really interesting to hear Jane actually, because I can see from the professional technical side of our industry, that's probably pretty cool. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with us being able to work up Insight Days and virtual WEX, be it sort of 2, 3 or 5 days. I don't see that being an issue. I think the template would be useful just to give us a base to go from, so that we can make a start, engage with Building Greater Exeter and the other partners and pull something together with the support of Speakers Schools. I think that's cool. And maybe Jane's point is really salient on the basis of the fact that I'm still struggling to understand how people that want to be a chippy, a bricky, sparky, plumber, yeah, I'm still really struggling to understand how a virtual offer is going to keep them interested for a long period of time. I can see an Insight Day being superb for them and understanding the bigger picture as part of their trade within a build. And some of those programming issues and health and safety, I can see that fitting. To my mind though, keeping a chippy interested for 5 days on a work experience that's virtual, I am really struggling. My imagination is clearly rubbish, because I am really struggling to understand how we'll keep that engagement relevant and appropriate, and it doesn't actually just put them off, if I'm honest. You know, and as I say, we speak from a lot of experience of hosting, tons of work experience. I did a brief overview of a 12-month period prior to COVID, and we were around 100 work placements in a 12-month period across our patch. So, you know, we've done it a lot, and that wasn't a particularly busy year for work experience for us. So. That's what I'm struggling with. So if anyone's got any suggestions, and obviously, like I say, I'm yet to speak to Hayley in person, but yeah, that's the bit that, and I think any support that anyone else can offer, CITB, whomever, I just worry that, you know, we've got skill shortages now. COVID hasn't helped. It's going to get worse unless we can get these people engaged that want these practical, you know, these practical roles.
Yeah,
I
sure.
agree, Michelle. I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly where I was coming from and where I was struggling, because the sorts of students that are normally attracted to the work experience that we offer are not academic. They do not spend any time really sitting down with a pen and paper when they're on work experience with us. And I think it's a little bit about sort of reimagining it and maybe accepting that we're going to appeal in the virtual world to a slightly different demographic of student, and accepting that we maybe can't offer the sort of experience that those students would want normally. So yeah, I'm still working my way through it, but I completely get where you're coming from. And I think when you spend half an hour speaking with Hayley, that you will find that you start to think of other ways that you can engage.
Good. We're on the right track then. All I need to do is give Hayley some dates and I'll get sorted.
I would strongly recommend that. It definitely helped me to turn my thinking around, and yeah, now I feel like I'm moving forward with it rather than just this is something that I'm
I feel like I'm in a bit
create.
an ever decreasing circle with it at the moment, if I'm truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. Thanks for that, Jane. Andy, you've just come off mute. Do you want to?
Yeah, obviously, no way am I. This isn't a criticism, but clearly, I think part of this is a perception change. That exactly as we just discussed, that idea that work experience is only for the low attainers or for the physical skills. If you want to be a bricky, chippy, whatever. So perhaps that is part of the education of colleges and schools themselves, to say that there's a much wider range of particular participants. Not least because, as I said earlier, it's all to do with that job readiness, the employability. So if you link to where you're going to be in a couple of years, as much as what you're actually going to gain from the placement, that might help. I think to look from a completely different perspective as well, virtual work experience isn't just a COVID contingency. We've been looking at this for some time, and I personally have run work experience programs. So where, whether because of limited places or because of health and safety restrictions, that resource that supports a virtual explanation and tour is invaluable and an ongoing resource. So please don't think it is a short-term thing. Not that all of us are, but you see what I mean. It's something certainly that can be used for quite a long time.
Yeah, I would just to chip in again. I would completely agree with that, Andy, actually. So the area that we cover, the councils that we serve are Plymouth, Devon and Torbay. So I've never ever had a student from a Torbay school on work experience because it's too far, you know, this goes back to what we were saying originally, the other logistics of work experience in the normal world, as it were, that they can't physically get to us every day. And I think going forward, you know, we would be able to offer this virtual experience post-COVID to those students that are a little bit further away. And also we've got 2 other facilities in the UK, one up in Dundee and one in Kent. And I think that we could probably work together. And I think Joe briefly mentioned that there's a costed service as well. Hayley and I spoke about this. So for the free service, Speakers for Schools host everything for you. But for example, I think, Hayley, am I right in saying for a fee of about £2,000 a year, you then have 10 licenses within your own company. So that means that there could be 3 of us in Plymouth, 3 in Kent, 3 in Dundee, and we could be reaching, you know, a really wide range of students that we wouldn't normally have access to. So I really see the long-term possibilities of this as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just from a kind of school college perspective, they're looking at this as a long term, you know, they can see a kind of blended approach. There's always going to be kids that can't get what they want from a face-to-face experience. And so they're, you know, thinking about virtual to kind of branch out to companies that aren't necessarily on their doorstep. And also there's always a range of students that can't access virtual work experience for a range of reasons, face-to-face work experience for a range of reasons. So I think having this blended approach, schools and colleges, you know, they're taking a little while to get there and to get up to speed with it, but it's definitely here to stay, that's for sure. So Herbert, have you got something that you wanted to contribute?
No, I was just agreeing with actually what Andy was saying about traineeships. It is something that is very long term in terms of the learner, because it's something that they take with them for life. I've noticed lots of the learners that Provista works with, it really sets them up to start earning money really and getting a job. Most of our learners have actually moved on towards the Kickstarter scheme, if anyone knows about that. They've been moved on towards that, which is really great news for us. Because it's happy for us and seeing the progression that's happening with our learners at the moment. Of course, we are looking to reach out to more employers and offer some more work placements, virtual or physical, depending on how it goes with COVID. Obviously, it's uncertain time. So I do understand that, but we will keep, you know, pushing forward and striving to, you know, help all students as we can and as we do. So yeah, I was hoping to possibly reach out to some of you as well in regards to placements or have a further discussion in future. So that's my piece, and I'm Herbert from Provista.
Brilliant, thank you. Hayley, Joe, I don't know whether you've got anything that you wanted to add to kind of Michelle's, you know, conversation before about, you know, really bringing those practical job roles to life, or whether, you know, you're in agreement with the other guys in that it is about thinking about this completely differently, and, you know, maybe it's something that's Dan and I have to do in terms of our conversations with schools and colleges about them thinking differently, you know, and kind of who the audience is for this. Have you got anything?
So I think it's a mix of both. That obviously it is around that kind of perception piece, and that's what I've been working with Jane. But I think that you can bring it to life. But there is functions within Google Classrooms that when people are on site, it might be that you can't get the students, but you could do a live broadcast potentially. I know that is a bit more difficult to set up, but you could then show that element live to the students and then get them to maybe do a Q&A or a poll, or they can then use that to discuss afterwards. So you can show those elements. Likewise, bite-sized videos that they could do on the job, and it might be that the foreman, for instance, is going to do a short video of something that's happening, but you can then upload that onto the platform and the classrooms so they can access it. So I guess it could be blended, but I think it is about thinking a bit more outside the box. But I think that will still give them that engagement. And Jo, have you got maybe anything to add on that? Because I know you've been working with more construction companies than I have since I started.
No, I completely agree. I think it is absolutely a mix of both. And just, I mean, often we kind of lean to the company because there might be something that you've kind of thought about that you might want to kind of implement. And just by kind of chatting to Hayley and I and just saying, look, I want to do this, how can we do it? Because you guys are working every day. So the actual kind of practicalities of what that looks like, often it's great just to kind of have a little bit of a brainstorm around that, just to see how we could, apply that, because there's probably ways that we can kind of engineer that to kind of be, I guess, converted into something virtual. But yeah, I think a mix of both is definitely true. And as I mentioned with the kind of household stuff, thinking, I guess, creatively about how we could make that happen.
Yeah, I picked up, I'd written a note about your household comment, Jo, actually. I was quite intrigued about how to potentially do some of that stuff. So like you say, it's just about thinking creatively, isn't it, I guess? And, what do you have around you? And I know there were some employers talking about, sending out packs of stuff to their students that, I don't know, obviously construction is slightly different. You can't send out a, construction whatever, but there are kind of ways around things, aren't there? It just depends, how far you're willing to stretch your imagination, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it is about kind of, again, just like brainstorming what you want to do and then thinking about how that could be applied and thinking of inventive ways of how you could make that happen in a virtual way. So I do think it is about kind of bouncing ideas off of colleagues and or people at Speakers for Schools to kind of just get intel on kind of how that might work, because there's probably, well, there's definitely ways that we can engage with young people that we haven't already done, and that just takes a bit of creativity.
Okay. And just to add, actually, I think it's CITB when I've been there that you have to do a health and safety kind of watch a video and go through a piece of paper before you're allowed to go onto the site. But you could do that, so you could still show the video and get them to fill in like a pre-questionnaire to ensure that they've done that prior to starting the first session, potentially. So it would still make them feel like they're doing the steps as you were going, but it's something that you could build into the classrooms.
Perfect. Thanks, Hayley. Thanks, Jo. That's great. And just Dawn, just sorry to put you on the spot. I don't know whether you've got anything from kind of Building Greater Exeter and how you're, anything to share around how you're kind of approaching this as a, collaboratively, or your thoughts.
Thanks, Jo. Yes, well, I think what we're looking to do is obviously ensure there's a really broad construction offering. So a lot of companies are, as we heard from Danielle, Wilmot Dixon, BAM, Key are already running them themselves. So that's fine. And then what we want to do is ensure that any of our partners who don't want to necessarily invest in a whole week, we can set up that they've got day activities. But what we've also been talking to schools, and they're really keen to have, is the insight days and discovery days. And I think, we all know it's been a really tough time for everyone, and we can make those fun and engaging as possible, while also, showcasing what a career in construction might look like. That's something that we're really keen to roll out sort of with schools in addition to the virtual work experience. And it's really good hearing, what works. I think for me, what's critical to ensure a successful virtual work experience is understanding, what has worked well and what the students do find engaging. I was thinking, maybe we could supply some pre-recorded video content. I think the feedback is actually they could be off playing on their Xbox while that's happening. So it's really critical to make sure that the content is really engaging and really interactive so they get the most out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're really aware at the Careers Hub that they're having a lot of online learning, and they are getting a little it is getting a little tiresome. So yeah, to make it as engaging as possible, and like you say, all of those kind of practical bits and bobs to be involved would be fantastic. So thank you. That's all really helpful. Dan, is there any other questions that have come through from the chat? I've kind of kept half an eye on it, but or is there anything else that anybody would like, or anything for us to take away and have a think about, or anything at all really?
I think for me, it would just be really helpful to get feedback that anybody's received from the schools and colleges, so that that can just be shared with everybody, and maybe everybody can start avoiding pitfalls and start from a kind of better baseline, if you like, on the basis of other people's experience. I'd be very happy, of course, to share any feedback we get.
Fab. Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks, Jane. We've just put together a little survey actually to go out to schools and colleges, just to kind of like ask them a little bit about their plans, when, you know, are they looking to get involved in VWEX? You know, if so, when, what platform are they looking to use, you know, what sort of sectors are their kids looking for, and all of that stuff. So as soon as we get the feedback from that survey, we'll certainly share it with you, because I think that'd be useful for you. Darnell, have you got something as well?
Yes, Joe. Yeah, sorry. Just a general question, really, because I wasn't clear on this. Just in regards to the duration of the work experience, because our traineeship learners have to complete a minimum of 100 hours. So I just want to get just an idea about that.
I think it can vary. I mean, Hayley will kind of back me up here, but I think it can vary. So we've been talking about insight days, you know, 1 day, and then some employers are going down a 3-day route, and some are doing a 5-day, and then others are doing it over a longer period of time. So it might be a couple of hours, you know, over a longer period. But I think it's kind of, it's down to each individual, isn't it, Hayley? Is that right?
Yeah, no, it is. And I think at the moment we are kind of not in the dark about what's happening with schools, but I think it is about being flexible. So if schools do not go back in February, I think that any days or half days that people can do virtually are going to be taken up really by schools, because they need to fill that time. If they do go back, say later, maybe in April, I think that that's going to then potentially put a strain on any work experience that might happen later in the year. Like those weeks might end up having to be days, and they might all having 3 days. So I think if you can be flexible, but I think that schools, some do really some want their full week, some want half day, some want 4 days, but it's about being flexible. Like we are hearing, if the schools don't go back, that some students would like to do that more in the evenings. They don't miss, so maybe a 2 to 5 session, so they don't miss school time. But then if you did that when they go back to school, you're going to miss them going home to then capture. So just being flexible, and I think there's always going to be young people that will take up those opportunities. Sorry, carry on. Oh, carry on, Joe.
I was just going to ask, was it Darnell that asked that question in relation to construction students that are studying construction at college?
No, Joe, I was just asking about the duration in terms of the hours, because at the moment our learners are in learning. We've actually moved to remote learning from about last year, sort of June. So it wouldn't really affect us in terms of like term time and so on.
But they need a certain number of hours to pass their courses.
100 hours, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so they could, Hayley mentioned, I guess the virtual work experiences are kind of different durations, but I guess for construction students that need to get a requisite number of hours, you could kind of have different virtual work experiences, different employers to kind of make that up. So you could have, you know, like a virtual work experience week with one employer in April, and then another one in kind of May, and another one in you know, August holiday.
Yeah,
that
to buffer the hours.
Those hours.
Great. No worries. Thank you for that, Joe. Thank you, Hayley.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the session, guys. Thank you so much once again for all of your input. I hope you found it useful. Please do use Dan, Anne and myself for any kind of, you know, school, college related questions. If there is anything in particular that you need from our, you know, local schools and colleges, do let us know, because we can kind of be that liaison between. And if there's anything else specific that, you know, you feel that we can help with, then do just drop us a line. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, not particularly. The only other literally thing I'd written on a slide that wasn't covered was just it's kind of literally just been covered towards the end of just keeping it manageable, and don't think you've got to scale up from virtual work experience, finding out about it last month almost when we had that workshop, to suddenly, oh God, I've got to look at a 3-day thing. Just scale up in terms of, all right, well, I'll offer that hour to that school, see how that goes, learn from that. Okay, now let's do half a day, and just use Hayley and Joe as people to kind of get help and bounce ideas off, as I'm sure they really enjoy talking about the variety of ideas, and they get a lot from it as well. So yeah, thank you to everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much all. Thank you. We'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Great. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.